Podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring writers, which means we never have the motivation to pick up a pen and actually put some words down.
So we're doing a challenge. Each week we pick 4 randomly generated words. Our goal is to use 3 of them in a complete short story that we write in 30 minutes.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the stories that we wrote, we talk about what we learned in writing them, and then we talk about listener-submitted stories.
Yeah, we're simply here to help you do the right thing.
Do the right thing. A weekly, fuck, no.
A doof
Do the right thing. A doof media production.
There we go.
That's right. Real smooth.
Super smooth.
This is not an off week. What are you talking about?
So, before we get started, Matthias, how are you? I know all of us are coming off of a fantastic Thanksgiving break, I hope. So,
you hope. You hope. Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a rough week, and so I wrote my story pretty last minute. But I was really worried that it would turn out bad, but it was pretty good. I'm actually pretty proud of it, but we'll talk about that later, actually. But yeah, this has been a quiet week for Doof. I think I think the main Doof cast are taking a week off. I think We've Got Ward and the Doof cast doesn't have an episode this week, so it's just us and the Aussies.
Us and the Aussies, the perfect post-hardcore band.
That's very true. But how was it for you, Jarvis?
This week it was fine. Week's been kind of hectic, but I did have plenty of time over Thanksgiving break because I didn't go back home. I was just here, so that was fun. I also wrote my story last minute though because I am the king of procrastination. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy the story that I wrote. I think the words gave me plenty to really work with. I know I used dashing, I used dim, and I used numerous.
We should probably announce what the words are for this week.
So the words for this week are hellish, numerous, dim, and dashing.
Yeah, nice little some positive words. It's interesting. We did roll hellish before. I think the word generator I use, like, it probably just has a limited set of words. I think we've only had like one duplicate before. Yeah, it's interesting that hellish is the one that comes back.
Yeah, I remember the last time we had hellish, I wrote that story about the like Lovecraftian monster destroying a town or something.
I think so.
Which was a long time ago.
Yeah. I can barely remember the first stories we wrote for this. I can remember the first one, but I can't remember at all what the second or third or so on was.
After that, we've just been on a roll, honestly.
After the hiatus, but the hiatus doesn't matter because no one was listening,
exactly.
So it's fine.
So technically, we didn't have a hiatus. We just gave up for a little bit.
I don't know if giving up is exactly the right word. It's more like put it off indefinitely. But the important thing is we didn't disappoint anyone.
Yeah, no one was disappointed
except
by
ourselves. But
yeah, exactly. But anyway, now we are appointing ourselves.
We are what ourselves?
Because disappoint.
Is
not.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really Okay. So which words did you use?
I used dim, dashing, and numerous. And yeah, I mean it was pretty good. The words themselves didn't really. I mean, they gave me a lot to think about, but I didn't use them as a primary influence for my story.
I used not instead of numerous, I used hellish.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they just like provided some setting details that like helped guide me along. But it wasn't so much like, guiding influence as some other stories are.
Definitely, yeah.
So this week was more of a quieter week on the community front. But that's totally understandable. It is Thanksgiving break, as we said. Two of our best doofers are taking the week off, so it's pretty understandable. But even then, we still had a solid 10 submissions, so really good on everyone that's working through the holiday season and keeping up their writing.
And also the ones that did come out are fantastic.
Yes, they very much are. I was gonna say that some of them are probably not Americans, so they didn't have to deal with Thanksgiving, but but yeah, I'm very excited to get to the community stories that we're going to talk about because they were all very wonderful. And I'm just excited to hear more. Although I would have liked to see more commenting on each other's stories. But again, I recognize it's Thanksgiving and we're kind of all tired. But it's, especially with with December coming up, I think it'd be nice to just, get in the Christmas spirit, the spirit of giving by giving people feedback. Okay, so without further ado, we might as well get into your story.
I enjoyed writing it. I'm not sure if it's totally as polished as I would like, but I will leave that for the masses to judge.
Sounds cool.
The Denton Dodgers. What's that, Pop Pop? Marcus pointed a ways in the distance, well past their tiny shack on the edge of the countryside, into a paved clearing. From their vantage point on the porch, little can be seen of the slab of land beyond the live oaks and unkempt fence. But enough of the metal contraption smack dab in the center of it reached Marcus's eyes and piqued that childish curiosity Pop Pop ran out of a little over a decade ago. Pop Pop hasn't become a bitter man, somehow maintained a joyful demeanor, and has a knack for making every conversation a life lesson, whether warranted or not. What's what, son? Slow and statuesque, Pop Pop turned towards the boy. His eyes were big and hungry, as if Pop Pop gave a much better answer than he did. The hunk of tin and pine on the slab. Ah. Pop Pop caught the traption's glint. It was more of a tetanus trap than a contraption, though. 3 or 4 shopping carts crashed together at the base. Smashed on top of that was a 50s washing machine left open and stuffed with kitchen gear and hunks of scrap. The top of it, and the only part of it that still shined, is a can of Afro Sheen, a baseball mitt and bat, an old telescope, and 4 walkie-talkies, all of which were triple wrapped with aluminum foil and perfectly placed into a pyramid. All the memories came back. That, Marcus, are the Denton Dodgers spaceship. Spaceship? At least something similar. Gave the Dodgers purpose, something to work towards and focus on instead of their home life and hardships. Who are the Denton Dodgers, Pop? A smile, reminiscent of the child he used to be, crept up. Bittersweet for something beautiful yet gone and unreplicable. They were the hooligans and do-gooders of Denton, the best we had. They grew up together, family friends, but lived completely different lives. Jane was the athlete, set records on her off days. Only thing cleaner than her mile was her pristine fro and her cherry red smile. Simon was the all-American, could hit every base before the ball was even hit. Kind of an ass. Pop turned an eye towards Marcus. He shouldn't cuss. Kind of a butt. Had a good heart, though. Logan was the outcast. Then, being smart was dumb. So, Logan was an idiot. We was still teaching creation when he was coming up. So, naturally, the kid that looked up at the stars was subject to a lot of unsavory people. Unsavory? Not good people. But the Denton Dodgers took him in. Gave him the chance to use his smarts for something tangible. The shot caller was Marcus Wright. Hey, that's my name. It's right. He was a glue that kept them together. And they were the only thing keeping him happy in this town. They thought, in the most childish way, that a spacecraft could take them up, away, and high above everything unsavory. All they wanted was in the stars together, exploring something that no one has touched, no one has tainted. But life passed them by, and that childish glint in their eyes became dim, not gone, but dim. Numerous responsibilities piled up. It was time to grow up, and so they left their ship alone. Were they close? Close, of course. Stronger than blood. The best of, yeah, of course. But were they close to finishing it? Oh. Pop Pop looked down for a moment, finding the words. They were days from takeoff. Everything was in order. Even found the right-sized engine to push them past the mesosphere. but they stopped believing in it, sold themselves short. On takeoff day, they all went their separate ways. Most to university, and some stayed here. Pa's smile took on a different form. The corners of his old mouth fell. Still a smile, still happy to have the memories, but regret sets in. Can we go look at it? Marcus smiled at his pop-pop, looked at his shriveled smile the only way innocence could. As the father of his father, as the only father he had, Pop-Pop felt the weight and responsibility of this kid. Pondered on the day he'd have to stop telling fairy tales to the boy. Wondered when he'll ask the right question he hasn't rehearsed for. Look at it. How's about we take her for a ride instead? Yay! Marcus exerted energy Pop hasn't seen in a while, flailing round in joy and wonderment. Before Pop could get another word out, Marcus was halfway down the porch, dashing towards the hunk of junk the Denton Dodgers forgot about.
That's a wonderful story, Jarvis.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's this beautiful like reminiscence of childhood and what's been lost over time, and I really like kind of the frame of it, of just like looking at this literally like dilapidated structure, and how, I mean, you don't present it as a spaceship first. Like you present it as like, this is a bunch of junk and it's probably dangerous. Like, what did you describe it? Like it's probably more like
tetanus trap.
Tetanus trap, yes.
Even though I think I wrote tinnitus instead, but
it doesn't matter. But yeah, that is, it's. I mean, I'm picturing it as like pretty ugly, like literally, like basically a garbage heap.
Oh yeah.
Like there's all these things, and then they're wrapped around with aluminum foil, and they've been out here for years, so they're probably all like rusted and stuff, and no one's like cared to take it off either. But to the kids back then, it was a spaceship, and as soon as it's mentioned to this kid now, it's a spaceship again.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was pretty cool. So I wanted to ask, what did you see in real life? Was it really something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it is very far off, but it did look like a couple of shopping carts, and then there was a wooden pallet that was laid on it, so it almost looked ladder that like leads up to the main hall, and it has this like roundish dome. Like, I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, but it looks similar to like one of the first prototypes for a spaceship.
And that was just out there in a field.
Yeah, well, it's not even in a field. It's just out there on a slab of concrete, and there's nothing around it whatsoever. It's just in the middle, and I don't know why.
I was going to go through the description of all those objects, and so the 50s washing machine left open and stuffed with kitchen appliances and hunks of scrap. That one I was mostly surprised about. I was like, okay, that's interesting. The top of it and the part that still shines is a can of Afro Sheen, a baseball mitt and bat, an old telescope, broken but surprisingly pristine, and 4 walkie-talkies. So I was wondering if like you had in mind the characters that you were about to describe when you were putting those down, or did you put those down and then you kind of went back and took inspiration from them?
Basically, as I got to that point, I knew whatever was at the top had to represent the members of the Denton Dodgers. Yeah, I kind of see it as like years after a kids on bike story, pretty much.
I mean, this kind of seems like the flashback or the flash forward of like Stand By Me or something.
Exactly, yeah, that was very similar to what I was going for. But yeah, I don't know, I enjoyed it. I think going back, I probably would have added a lot more before we hop right into the Denton Dodgers. Like give us some more scenery of like what the boy looks like and what the old man looks like. Also, I would want to figure out more so what really drove them apart beyond just growing up, even though the sad realization is that just growing up is kind of enough.
Yeah, well, you know what, I don't know how much more description you really need. Like it worked for me. Like to me, it wasn't so important that like who this kid was and who Pop-Up was. What was more important to me is that they feel a connection to the past like this. Yeah, so I like the reminiscence of an Age Long Gone. I like that we immediately kind of get their archetypes, right? Of the athlete girl and the boy that's too smart for his own good. One little touch of characterization with the items, I liked that the telescope was pristine, but the telescope like lens itself was smashed, right? So I don't know how much of this was intentional, but I read into that of like that's kind of what happened. Someone broke it, but he kept like taking care of it even after it was broken, just because it like meant so much for him.
Yeah, when I was writing that, I saw this character walking down the street for some reason, and then those good old fashioned 50s bullies come up and start pushing them around, and then the telescope breaks. But just to go off of tropes, of course, his dad gave it to him, and like his dad isn't in the picture anymore, so he has to like take care of it, and then all that. But like a good cliche should be used and not relied on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so looking back through it, I enjoyed writing it. I'm not entirely sure what I would really do with it besides just spend more time, because I feel if I did have the time to really spend on it, I would reside in the backstory a lot more. I would maybe provide a reason as to why Pop is still in the town, even though everyone else has left. And I would love to have a like magical realism scene when they like do get to the actual spaceship. And of course, the thing doesn't work, but like Pop is talking as if, "Ooh, you're starting her up. Oh no, we're going up. We're going past the asteroid belt." Just to have a really,
I can picture that.
Yeah, a really cute scene.
Well, one thing that I was left wondering is why didn't they take off? Like, I understand that they grew up, but like, what delayed them that happened? And so I think that would be an interesting thing to come up with an answer for.
Yeah, I know briefly I put that the reason why they didn't go off on takeoff days because they all stopped believing, that they kind of all realized, oh, this is just a hunk of metal that we put so much effort into building. But I would like to definitely go into detail a lot more with that, like give each person a specific reason as to why they want to fly past the mesosphere. So,
well, I'm wondering like what caused them to realize just before they took off. Like what does that and what does that mean, right? Like what were all the steps leading up to that and stuff? It's just something I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean,
of what was holding them back from like I guess kind of super enjoying their childhood.
Yeah, and I feel like that's. Yeah, I would love to explore that more, honestly, on a second draft if that ever does come. I feel like this will definitely be one of those do the edit thing.
Sure, yeah. Which we need to do sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we have all of December, so we can edit.
Yes.
Editing December.
We will do it for sure. I'm just wondering how we'll do it. It's something to figure out. So if you're listening and you have any ideas for how a do the edit thing should go, please send us an email or DM us on Discord, or just say it in the Do the Right Thing channel on Discord.
Or someone please send us an email. We haven't gotten a single one.
Well, we've gotten a couple, but they were all the requests to link Reddit account with Patreon account, which is very valid, and thank you to everyone who did that. And if you haven't done that already, please do. That's how you get registered to have a higher chance that you're due for being a patron.
Exactamundo.
Or getting selected, I mean. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about with your story? What else do you want to mention?
To be honest, nothing more. It was a really fun write. I'm excited I got it out. And I would like to explore these ideas, maybe not in this setting. Either way, I enjoyed it, and I'm happy that I did the right thing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it had been like more from Marcus's perspective of just like hearing his Pop talk about it and getting like the whole story that way. That might be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a classic story archetype, so I mean, you could easily study what someone else had done.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know, like, by doing that would kind of change the theme from Reminiscence to, like, Wanderlust, which is also really nice. And they're both things that we feel very much so. So yeah, I don't know. Something to think about.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just want to point out one little line that I really like. I love when Marcus asks, "Were they close?" Close, of course. Stronger than blood. The best of. Yeah, of course. But were they close to finishing it? Which is such a wonderful like pop-up is stuck in like the thematic resonance of his own story of what really matters in the story, and then they get stuck up in the literal like events. I like that a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, like as a kid, I know like a lot of older people have told me these grand stories, but I know I would always be like hung up on the coolest thing. Like,
yeah. I think you've already said a lot on what you would do with rewriting it. So if you have anything to add on that, please do. But also, what do you think you learned writing the story?
After writing this story, I have learned, that there is a special place in my heart for these kind of scenes. Very, very, very quiet scenes that are filled with thought from the actual characters. And I have learned to juggle with, I think, subtext a little bit more. So that's good.
Sure. Okay, cool.
All right. So I think it's time to talk about you, Matthias.
Yeah, that's right. So with my story, I'm as I've said, it's a little bit of an off week for me, a little bit of an off day, I'm gonna be honest. But I wrote half of this before I went to bed, and then, well, not even half, it was like a quarter, but enough to get the idea really going. And then I got really tired, and I was like, okay, I just need to go to sleep. And then this morning I finished the rest. So that gave me like a little time for it to percolate and get a little bit more thought out. So I'm actually pretty proud of how this goes. It feels to me, as I finish reading it, like the first chapter of a YA novel or something like that. So, but like it like does that fairly well. I feel like we'll talk about that when we get to it. So, but I'm kind of excited to read it.
All right, cool. Well, I'm excited to hear it.
This story is called Unexpected Inheritance. Can you come with me to check out the cellar? My little brother asked. I sighed, rubbed a hand at my face. The words on the page in front of me swam, dense legal language that took forever to get through, and was so important too. A week in the cabin I apparently owned now, probably, and I was through maybe a tenth of it. At least no one was calling me on top of it all. No emails either. I just want to check it out. He looked pitiful, looking too young for his 14 years, and I'm sure that if I gave him a hard look, his lower lip would start trembling. So I didn't. No, I shoved aside all that annoyance. I smiled genuinely. Yeah, sure, of course I can. I got up from the writing desk, leaving the bills and deeds and all the other stuff I had to read there. This is what big sisters are supposed to do, after all. Even though I had been in the middle of an important section, it would take me 20 minutes to find my stride through the legal shit again, but whatever. He wanted a chance to play in the basement of the creepy old cabin free of fear, I'd give him it. Like this trip in the first place. I stepped out and started walking around to the back, Brandon following. The day was muggy, with gray clouds forming a ceiling overhead. It was kind of comfortable, though, and I was kind of looking forward to some rain, snuggled up with a sad book in the cabin. It would be a relief from the oppressive summer sun. The cabin was old. It had been painted red once upon a time, but most of the paint had peeled to reveal the rot brown wood underneath. It looked dry as hell, and one of my only fears in staying here during the summer was that we'd let a campfire get out of control and burn up another piece of the inheritance, with us in it. I shrugged internally at the thought. Might be good to be rid of another thing to keep track of. The cellar door was ancient, and when I opened it, its creak was probably heard at the end of the long dirt road up here. The stairs into the cellar were dark. I started down it, stepping carefully in case it gave way beneath my feet. Do you think the spiders here are venomous? Brandon asked. I almost told him to Google it, but I bit my tongue. No internet out here, much to the chagrin of the hounding lawyers. They could stick it, though. I'd have my break from the clawing family and debt collectors. I don't know, I finally said. Maybe there's something in the encyclopedias in the library? Stay away from them, just in case, okay? He nodded. I stepped off the staircase. The stairs were creaky, and it was dark in there, the only light coming from the gray sky behind me. It was a little creepy, I'll admit. I found a dangling chain and pulled it. A single, dim, bare bulb cast yellow light on the space. The walls were stone, like the cellar had been carved out of the earth. Mostly, the space was filled with row upon row of wine barrels. There was almost nothing else. A bucket, a chair, a broom. That was it. Seems okay, I said. Brandon set to exploring. He disappeared into the lanes of barrels. I ran my hand along a barrel. I hadn't even known our parents did wine stuff. But I guess what else do you do with a cabin in the middle of nowhere? I felt a small rise of bitterness. How we hadn't been allowed to come with them on their trips here, not since we were little. Stupid that there was dumb stuff like this that they had hidden from us. Brandon screamed and fell on his butt, back in sight of the main part of the room. I rushed over. What's wrong? He pointed, in horror, at what looked to be a gargoyle, almost carved out of the stone wall. But that had to be an illusion. It was ugly. Really ugly. Its face twisted up in an expression like an angry gorilla. It was a really weird place to stick a sculpture. Especially since I was pretty sure gargoyles were meant to ward off evil from the sky, or something, which is why they were always at the top of buildings. Brandon was still breathing hard as he dusted himself off and stood up. I scoffed. If you're so scared, you don't have to play down here. Well, I don't want to play. I want to find a clue. He looked determined and a little angry. I strangled an exasperated sound in my throat and then suppressed a sigh of annoyance. We've talked about this, Brandon. There are no clues. It is what the hospital said. A refusal for transfusions, something about keeping their blood pure, and then they couldn't be saved, and then they were gone. I must have said it harder than I meant to, because Brandon was frowning, pouting just a little. The determination from a second ago was so easily brushed away. His brow was furrowed. He seemed to pick his words slowly and carefully. You've been mean recently. I started boiling at that. He didn't even know the half of it, how much shit I was dealing with, and then to come at me with these stupid pleas for attention when he knew how much shit was piled on me. He continued, unnoticing of the rising energy in me. Ever since Mom and Dad, he said. Ever since Mom and Dad what? I barked. Since they left? He looked shocked, crestfallen. That made me feel awful. But then for some reason, that feeling only made me mad. They didn't leave, he said. Died. Yeah, I interjected. I scoffed, looking up at the dirty ceiling. Well, that's the same thing to me. They're the ones with their stupid as fuck religious beliefs or oaths or whatever that killed them and left us alone. They didn't have to die. They could have just chosen to get blood like the rest of the 21st century. It's their fault they died, left us picking up the pieces of a normal adult life. I should be at home making friends, getting ready for college. But because they didn't plan anything, didn't think of us, on top of now having dead parents, they stuck me with everything, taking care of the money, the lawyers, the family, you. It was out of my mouth before I realized it. Fuck. There it was, that lower lip trembling, eyes getting shiny with bubbling tears. I stopped my heavy breathing, put on a regretful expression. Not that I wasn't actually regretful, but I sighed. Fuck. I'm sorry, Brendan. He whirled and he ran, dashing up the stairs of the basement, shoes clomping on the creaky stairs. I heard the door slam, and the view of the sky was cut off, leaving me in only the light of the single dim yellow bulb. I sat down on the wine barrel and dragged my hands across my face. Fuck. I shouldn't be having to deal with this. I made a noise of anger, a cross between a growl and a grunt. The thought was a circular track in my mind, and once on it, it was hard to get off. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I shouldn't have to deal with this because I was 18 and should be having my own life, and not any of this bullshit. Not the lawyers, not the family, not a 14-year-old brother hooked to my side and acting 3 years younger than he was. I felt bad about making him feel bad. really wasn't his fault, but, well, whose fucking fault was it? My hands were clenched. I shouldn't have to deal with this fucking decrepit cabin either. I looked again at the hellish face of the gargoyle. Its face twisted up in a mocking smile and roar. I stood up and punched it. My fist smacked against stone, and it fucking hurt. I cursed. Rage makes you do stupid stuff. I was still angry, and now my hand hurt, and that only made me want to break that stupid face of that stupid sculpture even more. I was looking around the floor for a tool when I noticed my hand was bleeding. It was a small cut, but noticing it made it sting, and it was like all my anger bled out in that moment. I felt stupid. Ow, I said, and I put my mouth on the wound. It's a weird human instinct to do that. Then I pressed my other hand on it, to put pressure on it. It stung, and I hoped we had a first aid kit upstairs. You win this round, I said to the gargoyle. But then I froze. Blood dripped from its mouth. My blood, red and wet. But way more than could have come out of that tiny a cut, dribbled from its mouth. But more important than that, its eyes were glowing. They were a solid red, helping now to light the room. As I watched, half expecting it to lunge at me, there was a sound like giant rocks rubbing against one another. And the section of wall next to it, a wall without a seam and made of solid stone, split. The split widened into a gap, and then wider, until it was wide enough to walk through without much trouble, before stopping. It was a doorway. Past the doorway, I could see a dim red light illuminating a set of stairs going down and out of sight. And starting at the end of it, I could see the flickering light of torches. Torches. Lit underground and without maintenance. A chill went down my spine. Or maybe with maintenance. Fuck me, I whispered. Just another thing I'd have to deal with.
Wow, that was a fantastic story. I love the slow build, especially like halfway through. I knew something was up. I knew something was gonna happen. Yeah, I just really loved the story. It was a nice twist at the end. Did not expect that, but at the same time, I kind of did. So I don't know. I really loved it.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that you expected it and also did not expect it. Yeah, so the core of the story, like what I first started writing was the emotional interaction, right?
Yeah.
Of just this big sister being tired of suppressing all of their anger and annoyance all the time, but also really failing at suppressing it, and that argument starting. And then as I wrote it, there was just enough stuff that I was like, you know what, maybe there's something wrong with the parents. And then that turned into a whole thing.
Well, yeah, because you left the breadcrumbs of them, of course, being gone and dead, but also something about their blood.
Mm-hmm.
That I love that there was a nice little mystery to that, which kind of led my mind to think, oh, something's up. Also, just the gargoyle being there was a little sus.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so originally I just wrote the argument and I was like, okay, I guess the parents are dead. And so I was like, why are they dead? She has to be mad about it, so it has to be something that is conceivably their fault, right? So I put religious beliefs, and I was like, wait a second. That's interesting. What about the religious beliefs? Something about blood. Let's bring back the blood. And so that was a fun part of the creative process. It's just jumping off and creating a mystery, because I don't usually do mysteries. I'm not very they don't come naturally to me, so this was nice.
Yeah, and I mean, for it to not come naturally to you, you did a really great job of setting up those pieces. And personally, to me, towards the end, I was like, this is the prequel to Blade.
Well, I haven't seen Blade, so
this
I
is
can't.
how Blade become. Oh well, no, it's not. It's not like that at all.
Okay, good.
But that's the only vampire thing I can call upon right now.
Yeah, it did definitely seem pretty vampire-y. Either that or some cultist
Vampiric
kind of thing. I don't know yet. We'll see if I return to this. Probably not. I think the interesting part of the story is done for me, which is the argument. So maybe if I think of another episode of the argument, maybe I'll come back to it. But
so when you were sitting down to write this, was it the words that really brought you here, or what ideas did you have going into it?
So last week, right, I I wrote a story that was about something that really happened, right? And it went pretty well, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do another nonfiction because that would be a little bit much. I don't know, it just felt like putting too much of myself out there. And so I was like, okay, what are like flaws that I have, right? I'm aware of some of the many flaws that I have, right? So I was like, okay, if I put all of them into a character, it's just me, right? So I was like, okay, let's just take one. Put it into a character and then see what happens and just exacerbate it. So in this one, it's I don't like any kind of confrontation and stuff like that. I really like push it away, and so I wanted to put that in the character where she. I mean, I don't know how much it actually came across because I think as I went, she became more and more mean until like that's basically all she is at this point. But the intention was when I started writing her was that like she had been super nice and like just repressing all of her annoyance and like frustration the whole time and like hadn't communicated like any of it at all. Hadn't expressed that like, oh yeah, her parents dying like sucks. um and like I still have a remnant of that. Like in the beginning she like smiles genuinely, but she's like clearly like pissed off and stuff. So the story was supposed to be more about that, but
throughout I could tell that this character has kind of became this person that they don't inherently like, because throughout like a lot of these emotions you do see it feels like they're kind of trying to like harken back to a better time before all this did happen. And you did like a really great job of explaining the stress she was under, like the lawyers and the bill collectors and the inheritance and all that. And you had to take care of your 14-year-old brother who for some reason is acting like he's 7. Yeah. Like, that's a lot. That is a lot. And I don't know. I think you've created a really great character that I
might bring her back in some form or another if I don't continue this. But yeah, I was fairly proud of it that it felt like this is a story that could go somewhere. Like I am kind of interested. I'm like, well, she's not gonna go back to like I'm thinking about the next steps, right? I'm thinking about them like as characters, right? Of which I don't normally do. Normally when I write, it's very intentional. Of like, oh, what do I want to see happen? But in this I can simulate it of like, oh well, she's not. Clearly Brandon would care about this, but she's not gonna like go back when she just had an argument with him, and also there's an open door in front of her, so she would go down, right? And then what will she find, right? She'll find the instigating event of the story, I'm sure.
And then that leads on to the rest of the YA novel.
Yes. Maybe she accidentally starts summoning a demon or something. Who knows?
Or she becomes a demon.
Or she becomes a demon. Yeah.
A teenage demon.
My life is a teenage demon.
Honestly, I would maybe watch like 2 seasons of that TV show.
That's a lot more than well, I mean, people would watch it, put it on Stars or something.
Yeah, only though if it is animated exactly like my life as a teenage robot.
Oh, if it's animated, that's a whole other boat. I was thinking just like a what's that? True Blood? Is that the vampire
True Blood
TV show?
Yes.
Yeah, like that. Except it's a teenager. Anyway,
I could dig it.
Yeah, so I'm fairly proud of it. It feels to me like a solid like I don't know. It just feels solid, and I'm proud that I've gotten to a point. So I'm gonna continue, skipping to the part where I'm talking about what I'm gonna learn. But I think I'm gonna keep trying to do this of finding specific flaws so that I know that I have, as I'm very familiar with them, right? Like not just because I want to put myself specifically into a character, but because I'm very familiar with how this kind of train of thought and how this kind of person acts, right? And putting them into characters, and hopefully I'll put them. I'll spread out the flaws over enough characters that no one could point at a single one and be like, "Ooh, that's you."
But
that's my concern.
But then they're gonna catch on. They're like, "Oh, all of these characters are facets of Matthias Mason."
I mean, if it's spread out enough, then it's not that big a deal to me. But well, I had because I keep wanting to write stories where I'm basically like the main character is basically someone who thinks like me and does a lot of things like me. And it's not just because like, I want to jerk my own ego, but it's just like that's more fun to me, right? Like it's like I like picturing
it's a
myself
self-insert.
Yeah. I mean, there's just something of like, I want to see what it's like if I have superpowers, if I have whatever. It's fun. It's a fantasy like any video game except it's writing. And so like I'm trying to find a balance between like satisfying that urge of like what are the cool things I want to happen, right, with someone who thinks somewhat like me, and not actually doing exactly that because I don't know. It just feels really self. I don't know, aggrandizing is the right words, but like to actually put yourself as a protagonist,
Well, I mean, I don't really feel that there's anything necessarily wrong with that as long as you look upon this self-insert in honesty.
Yeah, not make them a Mary Sue.
Yeah, exactly. So you let them have flaws, you let them struggle, and you could probably even explore things that you wish that you could explore within your own self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, you could also just make a really cool story where you are the main character. I mean, that's Dante's Inferno to a T.
That's funny. And that is fan fiction, right? So that's a self-insert fan fiction. That's a good point.
Now, I know that Inferno is. I sadly am a fake fan and have not read the rest of the Divine Comedies, but at least I know that Inferno is a self-insert.
Well, I did not know that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But back on this story, right? One thing that I think I would have personally liked to see more, even though this is told from the perspective of the older sister, and of course there is a lot of bias when it comes to that when looking upon your younger sibling, I would have liked to see that character of the younger sibling kind of fleshed out like a little bit more. It felt a little bit too one-sided, and I wasn't really sure what they were getting at.
So are you talking about the younger brother?
Yes, the younger brother.
Okay, yeah. So like why they were searching and why they want to be in the cellar and stuff?
Well yeah,
is that what you're talking about,
why they were searching, why they want to be in the cellar. And I don't know, I feel that the personality of this younger brother is the personality of a younger brother.
Sure.
Which, I mean, of course, it's a short time period, so I'm not really harping on you for that. I'm just saying.
It just sounds like really generic. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I think if I just like added a paragraph or two of like him fighting back a little bit of saying like it's like in the escalation of the argument, I'm not very good at doing the whole argument. There's like a point I want to reach in the argument, and I don't really know how to get to that point sometimes. And so, yeah, going back and maybe adding a part where, like, he insists that, like, something must have happened because they wouldn't do that to us, right? And then she, like, fires back with, no, of course they would. They're selfish. They hid this, etc. Yeah, so I think, that would be a really good way to do that. If I do the edit thing with this, that is one of the things I would do.
Yeah. Well, also talking about going back and what you would change, if you have more time, what exactly beyond just that would you change about this story? Or is it perfect and you just want to like leave it alone forever?
I think honestly, not that it's perfect, but I think it's too soon for me to really see what I need to like overhaul.
Yeah.
Because I think it like basically works. Obviously, like every single sentence I would be able to rewrite to make it better if I like really tried. Like did none of them, but that's not a boost of my editing skills. It's just that like they're not written perfectly and they're fixable.
Yeah, I mean that's true about like anything that on the second draft you can 100% make every aspect of it better because you have that hindsight on what needs to be changed.
So like I mean one little thing that I know I probably would change is probably figure out a better excuse for why she punches a gargoyle.
Yeah.
Or something like the gargoyle was just like, oh, here's the thing, it's gonna have like sharp edges at the mouth, and so if she hits it, there'll be blood, and blood is connected to the hospital thing, and that can activate a thing because magic. So it was really just an excuse to have that ending. So I think just finding a more natural outlet. I mean, I think it works if she hits something, but a gargoyle, I don't know. Maybe a gargoyle, but something else. I don't think this character believably punched a stone statue.
Yeah,
if it was something else, like, maybe that'd be a bit more believable.
I feel that if it was set up a bit more, that this character does have like tendencies to lean towards anger, then I could see this. But the character seems a little bit too calm in a sense, and like very self-controlled to the point to where I don't see this character punching a gargoyle. But honestly, it's a very simple fix to like bring them to that point.
Yeah. So something with that, I'm sure I'd figure something out where it just feels a little bit more believable. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'm fairly proud of it, of the overall structure and the overall what it's doing. So hopefully I'll continue doing stuff like this.
Once again, you bring us another banger, Matthias.
Well, thank you, Jarvis. A blood banger. Okay. Okay. So we can go on to the next section then, which is community spotlight. So we are going to talk about 5 stories by submitters. The stories this week are...
They are No Goodbye, Ace of Sword, Bisexual Punch Party, Kasubalu V2, and Hashirama Cells.
That's right. So some of them were selected last week as well, but I want to point out that the probability of getting chosen this week was a lot higher given how... I think we had 10 submissions or something like that, yes. So about half of them would be selected. So it just goes to show, the more you write, the higher your chance of getting selected goes up. So we're going to talk about these stories. This will be a full spoilers discussion, so if you haven't read them, please do. They are excellent, and they're going to be more enjoyable if you read them without any spoilers.
Exactly. Please, if you can, pause this right now. Go, read them, and then come on back to us. We will wait, don't worry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so which one do you want to do first? Do you want to go from new to old or old to new?
Yeah, let's go from new to old. So that means the first up is Kasubalu V2.
Mm-hmm. So this story is called The Catch, from their Tale of Adventure world, which they've written other Do the Right Thing stories in. Mm-hmm. And it has this girl, Charlotte, running through the capital and chasing a middlekin, which we assume is some kind of fantasy race. And she's chasing him, and we see some like interesting stuff that... interesting applications of magic in the world, like Charlotte flicks her moonstone earring, and we get the implication that she's a lot smaller, that way she can like slip through the crowd basically.
Yeah.
And she throws a rock like super accurately and hits the guy in the head and is able to capture him.
Well,
so it's a nice little...
it hits the guy right between the neck and head. So that's like...
Yes.
That's in the most sensitive part of the human body.
Yeah, I assumed that was a kill shot, but no, it was a capture.
I thought it was a kill shot too. I was like, damn, all right.
So it's a cool little scene, cool little action scene, and I like the view it gives of the world and kind of what we get of her character. She's kind of like a hunter. Not that the middlekin, the one being hunted, like really demonstrates a lot of like need of empathy. Like he doesn't like or anything like that or plead. But she definitely doesn't go out of her way to like treat him like a person.
Yeah.
So
this reminds me very much so of like the classic scene of the hard-boiled cop chasing down the killer.
Yeah.
On that aspect, I will definitely say that the description of the action is done very, very well. Like mm-hmm. There wasn't really a point throughout it where I didn't know where I was. And I know, especially when you're describing a chase scene, that can be very, very difficult because there are so many different aspects of it that you're trying to juggle. But I will say that it is done very well here.
That's right. So Kasubu V2 in a comment says that they've been struggling to do any writing at all for this week. Mm-hmm. And so they were drafting something for an anthology they're writing, which is I think this story is that. So I think that's really cool. Even though they had trouble, they still went out of their way to do the right thing. So admirable job, Kasubalu.
Yes, very admirable.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So the next story is by Hashirama Cells. The title is Pest, and we in the comment they explain that pest is short for pestilence, and so it's this interesting. It's a very interestingly told story.
Yeah,
where
it shifts perspectives, but like purposefully
Yes.
so.
Yes, it's not an accident. And so like we start off in first person, and someone is chopping wood and very clearly trying to keep their mind off of something, and they kind of become like meta aware of that they're telling a narrative. Like they don't know that they are a story on the Do the Right Thing subreddit, but they do know that they are telling a story, right? Intentionally. And then it shifts into third person again, talking about the boy, and he's been chopping wood, and he picks up the wood, and he takes it to a town. We get back into first person as they're avoiding the thoughts that they're trying to avoid, and then they get to the village, and there's a bunch of dead bodies everywhere. We assume there's been some disease.
And they're all
we
leaking
find
some yellow oil, or like yellow sludge.
Yeah, yellow sludge, basically. And then there's like an origin point corpse that doesn't have any wounds. We get that this is a medieval world with the Crusaders and stuff. And he starts burning the bodies, the boy. And so as we switch between the perspective, we kind of get the vibe that the first person perspective is an escape from the thoughts that the third person perspective is having.
Yeah. Which I think
the third person perspective. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I think it's like a really great balance that is like really struck here, because it's a way to get really deep into the main character's mind while still having a narrative that isn't unreliable in a sense.
Yeah, like third person like actually shows what is happening, and they have to burn the body, and people are dead, and it's very it's clearly very traumatic for them. So I will say that so I do get the sense that the first person is supposed to be the one that's like avoiding the thoughts and stuff like that, but to me the different perspectives, like third person is a lot more distant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would have expected it to be the other way around, where the first person kind of dissociates from the self and then like talks about themselves in the third person. That way they don't have to think the thoughts, because when you're in first person, you are always thinking like the description is their thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And so if it wasn't third person, it could be something like if the thing they were avoiding was like looking at the dead bodies, right? And first person is I looked at the dead bodies, they were horrible, and I tried not to think about them, but it was so difficult, etc. But if it's third person, it could just be like the boy looked at the bodies, but then looked away and try not to think about them. Like it becomes more clinical, and you add that distance.
Well, also I think something that could honestly happen throughout the story is if you switch the placement of the tenses, but at the very end when they are standing looking at the flames, and like as their master is consumed by the fire and then all that, I think that was a really good place to be first person, because that shows that acceptance of these thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, in that one, it switches. It's the only time it switches in one paragraph, which is very good. If you're going to do point of view switches, do it like how Shiruma Cells here did it, and do it paragraph by paragraph, so it becomes less confusing, except at specific points. So in this one paragraph, it goes, I stood there staring at the flames as they slowly but surely started to consume my master, and for the first time that day, something inside him broke. So in that sentence, it switches from first to third, and it goes, the boy started to cry, no longer lying to himself and just accepting grief, which is beautiful. But I would say I think it becomes stronger if you reverse it. The boy stood there staring at the flames as they slowly but surely started to consume his master, and for the first time that day, something inside me broke. I started to cry, no longer lying to myself and just accepting the grief. I don't know if it's like I think it's worth an experiment at the very least.
Yeah, but either way, I love reading it, and it captured me throughout the entire thing. So great job.
Okay, so the next one by Ace of Sword is called Payback, and so it had a part 1 called Unsettled, but this story like works on its own as well. And this story is about a group of I don't know if ruffians is the right word, but a bunch of like hooligan teenagers or kids
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah, although we get the
rough and
implication that they
tumble
also have
fellows.
superpowers or of some sort. In fact, Corail has demon powers or is demon spawn of some sort. And so we just get this delightful banter, and some character work. They're trying to break into a place and debating about how they get in. And Corail like just uses super strength and bends the bars, and we get her character that way. And then there's a funny moment when some guard dogs show up, and then Corail just makes them horny, so they don't want to fight, basically. And so it's just a funny beat, and everyone in the story is as confused as we are, even though there is like a logical explanation. So that's really the wonderful, delightful part of the story. And then we get a scene break. Is the scene inside the house that they are breaking into the backyard of is going on. And there's basically we've gotten some implications that curses are a thing in the story, and basically we get the implication that two people were excavating tombs, and then one died inside the tomb because of a curse, and he came back as a revenant to hunt the other. And so it's an interesting narrative, and I'm just interested in where it goes further.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the world building in it is fantastic. I think a really great thing here is that from the very beginning, I know where I am, which I find is a little bit difficult to really accomplish, especially if you're like making a part 2 of a part 1, because you lose a lot of the context that should carry over. But this is done really well to where it feels like a whole new start. So I am instantly brought in the beginning.
Another like just interesting little thing is how Ace of Sword. I think we chose them last week as well. And they're the one that we keep choosing the the Grimoire of Fire story, with the old man and then the guard and then the noble. And now we've chosen them again. Again, just another pointing out that if you keep submitting, your chance of getting chosen each week always goes up. So you can get chosen twice in a row. That's just how odds work. Yeah, once a week. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I love the banter between the characters.
So the next story up is by No Goodbye, named Trolley, which I really, really like this one. So basically the story is of this sky wire trolley that's like basically up in the sky that is on a invisible magnetic rail, and then there's a person named the Scared Man that's kind of bursting. Oh, see, it makes a lot more sense. So there's this person named the Scarred Man who is, let me get this right, bursting into flames, and light is coming out of the scars. And they keep yelling that their skin is killing them, and likewise there are a couple of people on there that are hostages. But
basically the Scarred Man is like, we get the implication that they are like, especially over the course of the later part of the story, the Scarred Man is kind of about to blow up. Like they we get in the beginning, we're scared of them, we think they're a bad person, but they actually just need help.
Yeah, and they're saying that their skin is killing them. And then this Clark Kent-esque man comes up, and he unbuttons his shirt, takes off his glasses, and look, it's Paragon, which I'm guessing that Paragon is the superhero figure in this world. And instantly people are filled with hope, but then Paragon is faced with this decision that he can't like break through the trolley and like throw the Burning Man somewhere else, or like go and save him, because then the other people that are on that trolley will die. So
I just realized this is literally the trolley problem.
What trolley?
Well done, No Goodbye. I did not realize this until just now. So the trolley problem is also known sometimes as like the sociopath test or something. I don't know, but it's basically there's a train track, right, and it's going to go and run over one person, but if you pull the lever, it's gonna run over 5 people, but if you pull the lever, it'll kill someone else, right? And
I see.
this is hilarious. I only realized it now, even though one of the first word the title of this is trolley. So this is literally the trolley problem, where the scarred man is gonna die. But the Paragon could save him, but he would have to sacrifice all these other people. And so, well, I'll let you resume the summary.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't know anything about the trolley problem, but now I do. So yeah, basically, Paragon is fighting between what do I do with him, and then he's going down the list like, well, if I punch him and just kill him, he might explode. If I focus on his brain, he might explode. So at the very end, the best course of action was to simply snap his neck. And bada bing, bada boom, you save the whole train. But this superhero-esque character, who apparently was strictly against killing, had to in fact kill to save more people, though. And yeah, I don't know. I really, really like it. It's, I don't know, for me, it's a mix between the last scene from Man of Steel and not to give any spoilers, but if y'all have seen The Boys, this is super similar to one of the best scenes from the Boys, which, like, if you've seen it, you definitely know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I just really love it, and also I just love that they decided to tackle this, like, idea that is very common in, like, a lot of comic books. And I think it's handled very well.
It's so much fun, and you really get the intensity of the decision being made here. Like, the Paragon does not want to be having to make this decision, and like, as a response to the trolley problem, right? Of like, but you kill one person by saving 5, right? It's clear that, like, yes, it's the right choice, but like, it's also extremely, like, difficult as a choice to do. So I think it was really well executed. And I liked it very much. Okay, so should we move on to the next story? So,
yes. So, this next one by Bisexual Punch Party is apparently from Earthbat. And the only thing that I know about Earthbat is that's a word.
So let's address this real quick. So this story's called Blind Fight, and it's from their specific fan fiction world of Apollyon, I think, but it's called An Apollyon Tale from Earthbat. So to address this,
and Earthbat is true Earth?
It's the Earth in Worm. Like, we're introduced to that pretty early, but obviously this is a fan fiction world, and I'm just gonna say this real quick. So, this is I don't know how to address this the best way, but for future Worm fan fictions, I would advise, not just specifically Bisexual Punch Party, this wasn't that bad of a transgression, but to mark spoilers just in case. Now, I'm going to treat everything in this as completely fan fiction, and not say that there's any actual real spoilers in it. If there are or aren't, I don't know. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but I'm not going to confirm or deny. Otherwise, your reading experience might be changed. Or names could be changed around, or anything. I'm gonna put after this, I'm gonna put a lot of what's it called, like, confusing
disclaimers.
I'm gonna say a lot of confusing things to Jarvis, that way he doesn't have his reading experience tainted too much.
Oh, I get it.
You're right.
Wire is Skitter.
She yep. That's okay. So so just in the future, if anyone's doing any fan fiction, if this, especially Wild Buzz works, to just mark spoilers. It's not that this is a big deal. And yeah. So let's get into the story. So this is 1987, and Hotwire and his team are going off to face off against a giant monster, which in this world is called a Titan. But do you want to talk about it, Jarvis? Okay, so because you jumped into it earlier and it sounded, anyway, delete that. And so we get this just some cool setting up of like what this threat is. It's codenamed Innocence. And it there's all these other monsters, and they're incredibly powerful and incredibly tall. And basically they're planning a giant attack on it, a first strike where they never were able to do a first strike on one of these before. There's some cool, I don't know if world building is the right word, but like we get a show of the powers. Like there's this, they're named in really like their cape names are really evocative of what they are. For example, the leader, the main character, the leader says, "How good are our chances?" And this character, Color Guard, replies, "Yellow orange." And so instantly we can understand that they are someone who like sees threats according to color. Like it's just in one line, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we get all. It's just. I don't know how much to summarize, but basically they all get ready to fight. There's this kind of resounding speech. We get a lot of character of like how Hotwire like doesn't necessarily trust everyone. Wait, is it Hotwire? Wait, who's the main character? No. Hotwire is the one that does
Hotwire,
the Tinker stuff. Oh, it's Fiddler's Green. Sorry. Yeah, the main character is called Fiddler's Green. And they don't trust everyone to give them all the information. Like they don't tell everyone that their chances are pretty low. So, but anyway, the fight starts, and it starts okay, but then immediately goes very, very, very horrible, and people get obliterated. And the color goes purple black for Color Guard, and so we get the implication that that things are not going well,
which means bad,
and they have to retreat, and Fiddler's Green tries to keep fighting, but already everyone's running, and then they also get deleted from existence. And so yeah, it's this cool action scene that just some good worm fanfic. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, honestly, like reading it, not having any context whatsoever, I thought it was super cool. Like these like heroes trying to take on this unstoppable force, and for like a moment, just a moment, I was feeling, you know what, maybe they have this, and then as you said quickly, they don't. And it's actually kind of terrifying in the sense that like all these like heroes that seem to like be quite confident in their abilities are just they're mopped the floor with, like they are obliterated. And also when you see Color Guard running, that means something.
So the dread of a situation that is hopeless, and hopefully someone else can do it, sounds about Worm. So sounds about Worm. If you like that, read the source material.
Maybe I should read Worm.
Thank you, Bisexual Punch Party, for providing another reason for Jarvis to read Worm.
Yes, though if there are spoilers in here, I'll be mighty disappointed.
I mean, it's a fanfic, so it's in an alternate universe where it's the apocalypse from the start. So in 1987, it's already an apocalypse. So
you're telling me that there are spoilers?
I mean, it's fanfic, so it's all made up. It's all made up.
So there are.
This might as well. Worm doesn't even have superpowers.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I forgot that. Well, again, thank you to every single last person and every single last soul that has submitted your spectacular story.
Sorry, I was laughing at how you say ass every single time. Anyway, yes.
Oh, do I?
Every single ass story.
Thank you to every single.
So thank you to everyone who wrote. And so we're gonna say everyone. And so just remember that every single time you write, your chance of getting selected goes up. So everyone that wrote this week and wasn't selected, your chance for getting selected next week just went up by a pretty significant amount. So just keep on writing.
Yeah, keep on.
So thank you to Sarah Penguin.
Thank you to Sense,
Kippos21,
Killinat,
Kausubalu V2,
Harashirama Cells,
Ghost Pac-Man 4,
Ace of Sword,
No Goodbye,
and Bisexual Punch Party. Thank you so much for submitting to our lonely little podcast.
Yeah. If you want to be like all these wonderful people that were able to write along with us, you can go to /r/dotherightthing.com. And even if you don't write a story, you can just read some of the other stories and maybe leave a comment or two, because feedback is very important.
Exactly. And also, if you are wondering exactly how do you find out about these words, well, the best way to actually find out is by following us on our Twitter, which is @RightThingCast.
I will admit I've been pretty bad in the past 2 weeks of actually posting things at the right time, but I'm gonna get better at that, especially once winter break starts up.
Also,
so starting this week, things are good again.
It will always be there eventually.
Yeah, and of course you can always subscribe to Do the Right Thing on anywhere fine podcasts are sold, or downloaded for free, and that way you can never miss an episode ever again.
Exactly, because, why would you want to miss a episode? We're your favorite boys.
That's right, and sometimes we write good stories.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, since there's two of us and we have guests, generally, I would say on most episodes you have a decent chance of getting a decent story.
Yeah, exactly. Most times. I would say if you take all 33 episodes, right, and you put them in a hat and you pick one out, there's a high probability that one might have a good story.
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that. So if you liked all the things that we do here in all these stories and things like that, you might want to check out all the other shows on the Doof Media Podcast Network. It's a wonderful network. I've been a fan of it for a very long time, and I'm very proud to be part of it. This week, Scott and Matt took a break, but that's okay, because a Doofcast episode is either has come out or is going to come out soon on season 1 of Legend of Korra. So if you liked The Last Airbender... check out that episode because that's one of the great Doof crossovers has been the four of them getting together to talk about all of The Last Airbender and then now Legend of Korra.
Also, that means that this next episode is going to be quite controversial.
So we'll see how that goes. I haven't listened to it yet. And in addition to that, so that was patron produced. So we need someone to patron produce season 2 of Legend of Korra. That way that discussion can just continue on indefinitely, until we run out of seasons. So if you want to become a patron and be that amazing person for $20 a month or more, you can tell us to watch something. I think TV shows are no longer at the $20 level, but still, you can make us watch something. And you can do that by going to patreon.com/doofmedia and donating $1 a month or whatever else you can afford.
Exactly. By helping them out, you're helping us out. And by helping us out, we can help you out.
You are literally doing God's work.
Exactly. Like, I think God... Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Why not? All right. Is there anything else that we need to plug? I don't think so.
No, I think that's it.
If you can't donate anything, please leave a rating and a review. Okay, we can move on. This week's words, right? We need to announce those. Is there anything else? I feel like there's something else.
No, I think that's it. But I do know one thing that we do need to say.
Uh-huh.
And that's next week's words, which are rapid, corrupt, auspicious, and afford.
Rapid as in very fast, corrupt as in corruption, like the police that have been bought off, or a kind of like disease kind of corruption, or an innocence kind of corruption. Auspicious as in like a good omen, or like wealthy, I think is some of the other connotations. It's usually kind of a religious thing. And afford as in, can you afford to lose this or that?
So the auspicious gentleman came to me in a dream one night. It was a rapidly progressing nightmare that was slowly corrupting my psyche. But he said on to me that there are stranger things than in heaven and earth, Horatio. And that if you can afford to take the slings of arrows from those you love and those you hate, then maybe, just maybe, you'll be a better person for it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I went to the wishing well to get an auspicious omen, but as I was in front of the well, I saw a sign that says the well does not accept pennies, only $50 coins. And so I said I could not afford that, and I turned away from the well. However, rapidly, the water was corrupted and burst into a geyser of black acid and fell on me, and I disintegrated, because that's what happens when you don't do the wishing well.
Oh. Wow. So I'm getting that at this wishing well, you probably should put in that $50 coin.
So if you want to write a wonderful story like that, you can go to / do the right thing, and then set the timer for 30 minutes and write a story that includes 3 of those words.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be from any 3. It can be the first 3 or the last 3. Either way, as long as you're doing the right thing, I think you're in good company.
Yeah, that's right. It'll